The girls. My mother hasn't been the same since my dad died last year of a heart attack. Sometimes we would be watching TV and she'll just start crying for no reason. She has been trying to keep my life the same as when my dad was still alive, where I still go to field hockey and Girl Scouts while I'm now in the 6th grade. Both my mom and I were disappointed that the two other girls that I have been doing Girl Scouts with since kindergarten have recently quit, and now I'm doing it by myself. I thought we were all going to go on the Greater Philadelphia area Girl Scout camping trip with the other troops in the area, but now it's either I go by myself or I don't go at all. I remember getting the Girl Scouts catalog of the different camping trips and seeing how fun it would be to go camping on this Memorial Day weekend in the Poconos. My mom had already paid for me to go on the camping trip, so I decided that I was just going to go by myself and hopefully meet other girls at the camp. Because my mom is always so sad, I have to prepare for the trip all by myself. I've learned that I have to pack and make sure that I get on the bus this weekend, or else my mom will forget and I won't go because of the constant sadness and depression that she deals with. On the morning of the camping trip, I remembered that I had to be on the bus by 9 a.m. So I woke my mom up at 8 a.m. and said, "Mom, I'm ready to go." "Okay, Grace, I'll drive you to the drop area then," my mom said as she was still half asleep from the prescribed pills that she had taken the night before. "I'm all packed and ready to go." "Okay then, let's get in the car so we don't miss the bus," my mom said in a groggy tone. "The bus will be at the same spot as 2 years ago, right?" my mom asked me. "I don't know, Mom." "Okay, I'm sure the bus will be there," my mother assured me. "Mom, I was only like 10 years old then, so I really don't remember." "Okay, there's nothing to worry about because we still have time," my mom said. Of course, my mom had to get gas and coffee, and she couldn't remember exactly where the drop-off area was located, so I started to get nervous that I was going to miss the bus. "Mom, it's 8:57 and the bus is going to leave at 9. "I know, sweetie. I'm pretty sure the bus will be at the next block." "Well, if it's not, then I will surely miss the bus." "Oh, look at the bus in front of the church. I think this looks familiar from 2 years ago," my mom nervously said. As my mom drove up to the bus, we both saw a bunch of girls on the unmarked yellow bus where the girls looked to be about my age. "Okay, honey, I'm not going to have enough time to park, so grab your bag and get on the bus." "Okay, Mom," I said with nervous excitement. I grabbed my bag and left the car. "Have fun, sweetie. I'll see you tomorrow." "Okay, bye," I said to my mom. The nervousness really took over me as I walked in front of the bus and made my way onto the bus. The bus driver was an older man who just looked straight ahead out of the front window as I said in a very low tone, "Hi, this is the bus for the camping trip, right?" The bus driver didn't say anything back to me, so I'm not even sure if he even heard me as he just looked forward. Regardless, I just took the non-response from the bus driver as a yes. The bus was filled with girls, so I looked for an open seat. All the girls were quiet, which I figured was because they were all tired and maybe they didn't know anyone else like me. I found an open seat towards the back of the bus, and then the bus started to pull away. My mom had parked up the street and she waved to me as the bus passed by her car. I felt overwhelmed by everything, and I started to cry a little bit from the stress of almost missing the bus to being on the bus where I didn't know anyone. I looked around on the bus and all the other girls still weren't talking, and I felt really shy and awkward to say anything. I really didn't know what else to do, so I just closed my eyes. The longer that I kept my eyes closed, the sleepier I got. Sometime later, I woke up and looked at my cell phone and it said 12 p.m. and I was surprised that I had slept for that long. I looked out the bus window and noticed that we were driving in a heavily wooded area. Then the bus pulled into this driveway to what looked like a camping area. I was a little excited as I looked out the window to see a pool area and some other structures. The other girls on the bus were expressionless and just looked forward. The bus driver stopped at the end of the driveway and opened the door. Then, one by one, everyone got off the bus. I followed the rest of the girls as we got off the bus with my bag in hand. As I got off the bus, I quickly looked around and I didn't know where to go, so I just continued to follow the other girls. In my head, I thought there would be a Girl Scout leader who would greet us as we got off the bus, but there was nobody. Once all of the girls got off the bus driver pulled away. I didn't know whether or not to signal for him to stop because I didn't see any other grown-ups, but I'm not sure if he would even see me as he continued to look forward the whole time. Not really knowing what to do, I just followed the other girls to one of the cabins. None of the girls were talking, so I really didn't feel that left out. There were 3 wooden cabins and I started to get nervous because I didn't know which one I was supposed to go in. But it looked like the other girls were just randomly going to any of the 3 cabins. I went into the closest cabin and not knowing what bed to pick, so I chose the first one that I saw and put my bag on it. As I sat on the bed, I realized that none of the other girls were in the cabin that I went into. Not really knowing what to do, so I picked up my bag and went into the next cabin, where I saw that all the beds were filled, so I went into the last cabin and I saw all the beds were filled as well. So I went back to the original cabin that was completely empty beside me. I sat down on the bed and started to cry because I felt left out and alone, and I really didn't know what to do. Plus, I didn't bring a sleeping bag or anything else, and all the beds in the cabin are just bare mattresses. As I sat down on the bare mattress, I looked at my cell phone and I noticed that I don't have any cell phone reception, so I can't even call my mom. As I remained seated on the mattress, I felt the urge to use the bathroom, so I left the cabin and headed on the trail towards the stone building that looks like a bathroom. As I get inside the stone bathroom, I realize that it's a shower room and a bunch of bathroom stalls. The building is a little bit scary because I'm the only one inside of it and I hear the constant drops of water coming from the sink. I left the bathroom as quickly as possible and looked at the 3 cabins and noticed that no one else is outside. I really don't want to stay in the cabin by myself, so I walked back to where the bus dropped us off. I was really overwhelmed and nervous because I didn't know what to do and I can't call my mom. There was a small cabin where we were first dropped off, so I figured that I would look in there to see if there were any grown-ups. As I got to the small cabin, I opened the wooden door and said, "Hello? Is anyone here?" Nobody responded to me, and I could tell that no one had been in the cabin for some time because of all the cobwebs and dust that had been accumulated. I noticed an empty nurse's room in the back with an exam table, but there was no nurse in the room. I am now even more upset because I still don't see any adults who I can ask for help. As I exit the cabin, I see another larger building off to the right that I decided to take a walk towards. I look around as I walk to the building and I don't see anyone else outside. As I get to the large building, I open the screen door and see a bunch of cafeteria tables, so I figure that this thing is a dining hall. As I look around, I see no one else and the building has a feeling that no one else has been inside of it for some time. I then exit the dining hall and take a walk to the pool that I saw when I first arrived to the camp. I continually look around as I walk towards the pool and I still don't see any adults. As I get to the pool, I was really disappointed as the pool is half filled with brown murky water that looks disgusting. Not knowing what else to do, I walked back to my cabin where I continued to cry. I tried calling my mother, but none of my calls are able to go through due to lack of cell phone reception. I don't want to stay in my cabin by myself, and I want to ask one of the girls what I'm supposed to do as far as blankets or a sleeping bag, and when we are going to eat, as I'm starting to get hungry. So I walk into the adjacent cabin from mine and notice the cabin is eerily quiet with no one else inside. I quickly go outside of the cabin to make sure that I'm not in my original one, but I'm certain that this empty cabin was not mine. So I go back inside the same empty cabin and realize that there's no other girls inside to include any of their bags or any other stuff to indicate that they were ever in the cabin to begin with. So I go back to the last cabin and realize that once again it is completely empty. I now feel extremely panicked because maybe the bus came back to pick up the other girls and I missed it when I was looking in the dining hall or when I was somewhere else walking around the camp. As I walk back to my original cabin, I yell out, "Hello? Is anyone else here?" Where nobody responds, so I continue to yell out, "Hello? Hello?" After a few minutes, I stop yelling and now I am crying uncontrollably. I am now completely alone and scared, and the silence is terrifying. I have no idea on what I am supposed to do, so I go back to my cabin. I sit on my bed and put both hands on my head as I continue to cry. I take out my cell phone and see the no service indicator on the top left of the screen. I don't want to be here, and I don't know how to get out of this property. All I saw were trees when I woke up on the bus and didn't see any houses. I brought one granola bar with me and nothing else besides a water bottle. The battery on my phone is getting low and I don't see anywhere that I can plug my phone charger into. I wish I could stop crying, but I can't because nobody knows that I am here on this property. Nobody had asked me for my name, not even the bus driver. I wish my dad was still alive because the three of us would have just went camping and he would have protected me. It's starting to get dark and colder outside. All I brought were t-shirts and shorts. I don't even have a sweatshirt. When Dad was still alive, Mom would have made sure that I packed appropriately. What do I do? I say to myself as the tears continually roll down my face. Dad, please help me if you can hear me. I really need your help, Dad. I continually say out loud. I know all I need to do is to make it to tomorrow because this is just an overnight trip. Hopefully, Mommy knows where I am if the bus doesn't come back. The sun is down now and the cabin is completely dark. I am so petrified that I don't want to move, so I won't make any noises. I hear a bunch of weird sounds outside that I typically don't hear in Philadelphia. I think it's just insects, but I'm not sure. I really have to pee, but I'm too scared to go out of the cabin. But I've held it in for so long that I can't hold it anymore. So I slowly get up from my bed and inch my way towards the door of the cabin. I look outside and really can't see anything because of the darkness. I have no other choice than to open the cabin door. I start to walk towards the shower rooms and I have this sense that I am being watched from the thick forest that surrounds the three cabins. I tell myself just to keep moving as I walk with my head down. As I get into the shower or bathroom, I can barely see anything. I really don't want to go inside because of the fear of the unknown that lurks inside. My urgency to pee takes over as I make my way inside to one of the bathroom stalls. I quickly finish and slowly leave the stall. As I attempt to leave the stall, I hear the undeniable sounds of footsteps on the concrete floor. My heart quickly revs up to prepare me for whatever is lurking inside of here. The moonlight shines through the windows, which makes it easier for me to see the figure that emerges from the shower area and moves towards the sink that is located next to the bathroom stalls. I hear the shuffling footsteps on the concrete, then I faintly make out a girl about my age. I momentarily freeze because I haven't seen nor heard evidence of anyone else for what seems like hours. The girl uses the sink and doesn't even care that I'm standing within feet of her. I don't want her to leave without possibly trying to help me, so I say, "Hello," in a low tone. The girl picks her head up from the sink and looks over at me. I could barely make out her face, but I could tell she has long curly hair that might be yellow or red. She doesn't seem to be overly alarmed when she briefly looks at me. She stops looking at me and then leaves the building without responding back. I don't want to be left alone on the property, so I follow her out of the building. I say, "Excuse me, I really need help." As the girl continues to walk and doesn't respond to me, she walks towards the cabin on the trail, and before getting to the cabins, she veers off the trail and goes into the woods. I follow behind her into the thick dark woods, but I find it really difficult because there's no trail and I have to be careful not to trip on a log or a rock. The more she walks through the woods, the further she gets away from me to the point where I can no longer see or hear her. I stop and decide to turn around, and as I do so, I try to remember which way I had entered the woods. I feel like I'm trapped within a wooded jail because I can barely see anything with the leaves blocking out the moonlight, so I don't know which way to turn. I am so horribly confused and scared that I decide to just sit down with my back leaning against a tree. I'm so cold and hungry, wearing just shorts and a t-shirt. I thought about yelling out to that girl again, but now I'm too scared because I don't want anything else in these woods to hear me, besides the fact that she didn't respond to me before when I tried to get her attention. I put my hands on my knees as I remained in a sitting position, and I gently rock myself back and forth as I cry. I did this same thing in my bed at home when Dad died, and Mommy was too depressed to do anything for me. I continually rock back and forth, and I try to block out the coldness and the strange noises that I hear all around me coming from the woods. I think to myself who that girl might have been because I don't think I remember her from the bus when I first came here. Then I get really sad as she wouldn't stop to try to help me, and the thought of the other girls who just left me here. My whole body is bursting with goosebumps as I try to combat the cold weather as the tears and other liquids come out of my eyes and nose. I don't want to die, but I feel that I'm in a position where nothing else can be worse than my current situation. Eventually, sunlight starts to shine on the forest and I can start to see better. I can now make out one of the cabins in the distance, so I walk towards it. I feel completely exhausted from lack of sleep and being cold and hungry all night in the woods. I grab my bag from the cabin and head towards the area where the bus had dropped me off, where I'm hoping the bus will come back and take me back home. The sun still hasn't fully come out yet as I'm still cold. I take out the granola bar and quickly finish eating it. Then I take out my cell phone, and my thumb seems to be so cold that the phone won't recognize my thumbprint to unlock the phone. I see the word emergency as I attempt to unlock the phone. I push the emergency and get prompted to call 911. I am apprehensive about calling 911 because I was always told not to dial 911 for fear that I could get in trouble, but I feel that I have no other choice. 911, what's your emergency? I don't know where I am and there's no one else around. What's your name? The 911 dispatcher asked me. Grace Matthews. What's around you? Mostly woods and a few other things like a building and a pool. Are you safe? I'm just really cold and I was supposed to go to a Girl Scout camp, but I'm not sure if I was taken to the right camp. I've seen no adults besides the bus driver, and all the other girls disappeared somewhere after getting here. Okay, honey, do you see names on any of the buildings or a name on anything else? No, I think this place had been abandoned and just about everything has been removed. Okay, honey, do you remember when you were on the bus ride of names of anything or any type of businesses along the way? I fell asleep, and when I woke up, there was nothing but trees. Then the phone call abruptly got disconnected. I felt defeated, but I hoped the 911 operator had enough information to help me. I don't know if it is safe for me to hang out by the road that leads to this property, because of strangers that might drive by, so I went back on the camp property. I can't focus or think about anything because I didn't even sleep for 1 minute last night. It's still too cold to stand still or sit, so I try to walk back and forth. I just don't know what to do, and I don't know if anyone is coming to get me. After walking back and forth for what seemed like forever, the sun is finally making everything feel warmer. So I decide to lay down on the grass by the entrance to the camp. I'm so beyond tired that I can feel myself drift off to sleep right away. I open my eyes in a panic as I hear something rumbling. It takes me a few moments to get my bearings, then I realize that I'm alone in the middle of nowhere in an abandoned campground. The rumbling noise gets closer and louder, and I can now see that it's the same unmarked school bus that dropped me off here with the same bus driver. The bus driver opens the door and I say, "Are you going back home to Philadelphia?" The bus driver looks at me completely stunned and says, "None of the girls have said a word to me in more than 2 decades. "What do you mean?" I said as I got onto the bus and sat in the front seat. Back in the 1980s, I used to drive a public bus for the Transit Authority of Philadelphia. One day, a guy named Rick came on the bus and said that he would pay me triple my salary if I would drive his recently purchased school bus, where I would transport poor, high-risk females to his overnight camp. The money was too good to pass up, so every Saturday morning, I would park the bus in the same spot where you originally got on the bus. Then the girls around your age would fill up the bus. I remember driving the girls on the first trip to this camp, and all of the girls were so excited about going to camp. When we pulled into this camp, there was a big welcome sign that read, "Welcome to Camp Dreams," where the girls would start clapping. Then I would drive the girls back to Philadelphia the next day. I did this for a few years, then something dawned on me, where I eventually realized that there would always be one girl each weekend who didn't return back on the bus, who tended to be the shyest girl. I was transporting sometimes close to 60 girls, and I never took any kind of roll call or attendance. For the longest time, I wouldn't have even realized that some of the girls didn't come back home the next day on the bus. Then, on one Saturday morning, just for the heck of it, I counted the girls who came on the bus. Then I counted the girls when I picked them up here at the camp, and there was one girl short. I even remembered the uncounted girl who had red shoulder-length hair because she sat right behind me. I even tracked down Rick, the owner of the camp, who assured me that all the girls who came to the camp had left the next day, but I was certain that girl was missing. To shut me up, Rick put his hand on my shoulder and told me he was going to double my salary because I was such a reliable bus driver. The pay I was making was insane, so I learned to stop counting the girls. However, I knew that I was feeding the lion, and I committed the ultimate betrayal against mankind. The hardest part was that no one ever asked me about any of the girls who didn't return home from the camp. I learned that Rick essentially paid a social worker to find girls whose parents were drug addicts who eventually were imprisoned or ended up dead. Eventually, the magnitude of what I was doing weighed so heavily on me that I told Rick that I wasn't transporting the girls anymore, and I even went to the police and to the local politicians. Rick had actually died from a drug overdose shortly after I went to the authorities. However, there was never a formal investigation that was done on any of the missing girls, because there were no missing reports ever filed, and of Rick's family's political ties that went as far as the Kennedys. So every weekend, I used the same bus to transport the same girls from decades ago, where I'm too ashamed to even look at them. Hence why I didn't notice when you originally got on the bus. The girls don't get any older, and I don't know the purpose of them wanting to go back and forth to the camp. But I do know it's a constant reminder in what a gutless greedy scumbag that I was for choosing money over the safety of the girls. This is the most horrifying thing that I have ever heard. I remember my mother putting the movie E.T. on, and I was terrified. But what you just told me is off the charts as far as horrifying, I said. Then the bus driver froze and faced forward as the girls started to board the bus. I too couldn't look at them, and I was absolutely petrified. The whole bus ride home, I just sat and looked forward, and none of the girls said a word. Once I got cell phone reception, I texted my mom to pick me up 2 hours earlier than I originally had told her, because obviously this wasn't the Girl Scout camp trip and I got on the wrong bus at the wrong location. But I didn't tell my mother that in the text message that I sent to her. When we got back to Philadelphia, I was the first one to get off the bus, and the girls behind me got off and they all scattered in different directions. I went to my mom's car that was parked on the street and she greeted me with, "Hey Grace, did you have fun?" "Yes mom, the camp was fun." "You look exhausted. Did you stay up all night with the other girls?" "Yes mom, I had stayed up all night." I didn't want to put my mother into another extended depression, so I decided to tell her nothing. But now, instead of being obsessed with TikTok, I spent most of my time researching camp dreams to try to identify the girls.